Wow. It's my pleasure to introduce you this evening to John Held, the producer of the film that we are about to view, entitled Fieldwork, A Family Farm. I know that some of the guest actors, families that are in the film, are some of the characters are here in the audience this evening. We'll have a bit of time after the screening to interact with John and the cast. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I should mention that this film features music from an Iowa-based duo, the Truck Stop Souvenirs. The project was funded by the Humanities Iowa and the National Endowment for the Humanities. The Leopold Center for Sustainable Agriculture and the Committee on Lectures, we know here funded by the GSB, are co-sponsors of the event, as well as, I want to make absolutely certain that we mentioned that Iowa State Extension is providing the treats and drinks for the reception that will follow the screening. So without any further comments from me, I'm going to ask John Held to come forward, and he has a few remarks about the film, and then we'll see it go. Thank you for being with us, John.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Hey, it's great to be here. So exciting to share this work with you guys tonight. So about 2008, I started filming this documentary, and it's been just a blast. I live in Seattle. I grew up in suburban Washington, D.C., so I'm pretty much a city boy, and it's just so much fun to spend time in a farming community. Came back, I think we shot about 6 times over the course of 3 years, and we're just about done with the film. It's still we're just in the final editing phases, so it's a wonderful thing to be able to share the work, like I said, with you tonight, and also get your feedback afterwards if you want to stick around and chat with us. I wanted to make a film that looked at farming from the point of view of the farmers, that kind of took you inside the world of farming, to give a kind of a cross-section of a farming community. I didn't know much about farming, and I was curious how farms stay family-sized, the ones that are family-sized, how they are able or are not able to stay family-sized in an era when farms are getting bigger and bigger, and what that meant to the different people involved. So I hope it looks at some of those issues through the lens or through the perspective of the farmers and the people who are involved. And like I said, it's been just my pleasure to spend time in the community around Boone and Webster County where we shot. Expect the film to be released sometime next year, like I said. So this is a pleasure to be able to share it with you kind of early in the process, and to be back here in Iowa to do that. I want to just mention a couple business things. Humanities Iowa, like Paul mentioned, funded the film, and there's some evaluation forms going around, so if you wouldn't mind filling those out and leaving them in an envelope back in the corner. There's also a participant sign-up sheet. I guess Humanities Iowa would love to know, how many people were here, and if you're interested in receiving any, information on other programs from them. So I'll pass this around, and hopefully we'll have that at the back too. Again, I want to thank the Leopold Center for sponsoring this. I was grateful for their involvement, as well as Molly and Pat from the lectures department here. So thanks again for being here. Join us afterwards. We'll have some of the folks in the film here, which is a real pleasure. We'll chat with them after. So thanks. Talk to you after.
Now maybe we can get the house lights on. Does anyone know where the light switch is? Oh, you just flip switches till they finally come on then. I would help, but too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the soup. Ah, there. You're making progress. Thank you, John. You're very talented. Now, I guess, would we want to take just a couple of minutes so people can stand and sort of stretch, or and while we move our panelists up, John?
Sure. Or why don't we just bring people up now? I don't. Do you guys need
Right.
a break?
Well, I thought as our panelists came up, others could maybe go get some treats.
Yeah, that'd be great. Help yourself.
So we have a number of the folks that appeared in the video that's going to come up, and we'll have a dialogue with them. So the Swanson family, the Wilbur family, who else?
Dave Mickelson is here, and Rich Rogge, and is anyone else here from the film? I may have not have seen yet. Come on up. And yeah, please help yourself to refreshments. I want to pass around this participant sign-up sheet if anybody's interested in receiving info from Humanities Iowa. And take a postcard too. We got postcards for the film. Keep in touch with us. Independent films rely on word of mouth, and if you liked what you saw, send an email to us or check the website. All that info is on the postcard. So you'll be aware of, if you send me an email, we'll send you info on when we're back in Iowa screening the film next year, and keep you updated on any showings that are going on around the country or on TV or whatever. So help yourself to one of these on the way out, and help yourself to refreshments, and we'll chat with you in a minute. Thanks.
I got it. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and try to get our panel started. So, if the Swanson family, if they'd make their way up to the front, let's see, the Wilbur family, that you invited them to participate, and
Dave Michelson.
Dave Michelson. John's going to join you. This is a time for those in attendance to ask questions of those who are featured in the video. Maybe they have questions about how to break into the documentary movie business, John. The royalties that we get, will I get royalties? Will I be able to invest in farmland? You know that. Go ahead and take a chair up there, folks. Our stars are coming up. Stars of the video. Do we need more chairs? Do we need more chairs, John? So I think what we'll do is we'll let you use this one. Now I'll get the one out of the...
Great. Perfect. We can pass that. Is it Allison?
So, wow. I guess the first thing we ought to... Boy, John, I'm pretty loud, aren't I?
If you'll head up there, the speakers are probably listening.
Is that better?
No, maybe not. Maybe come up here. Come up so you're not under the speaker.
Is that better? We can't use the speaker, the mic down there. So, do we have more? There's Rich down there.
Are we on? Okay. We got the technical part worked out.
I think so.
Well, first of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to all the people who... yikes. I just want to...
Where's the sound? Do you know where the sound is?
We have a professional.
I really think it's this one that I picked up that's too hot. Let's try that. Oh boy, we have got it made. It's getting better. Now, how are you, John?
How am I? Anything? I'm okay. No. Well, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who was in the film. It has been, like I said, a blast making this film, and have just enjoyed talking with everyone, and really appreciate everyone taking the time and putting up with me riding in their tractors and combines and following them around over the course of a few years. So really couldn't have made the film without you. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for anyone? I'd love to hear what's on your mind, your reactions to the film, and questions for the participants or me.
Don't be bashful. Well, I'll start off because I really liked the video, even though I think your camera lens made me look too fat. And I've heard that video cameras do that. But the question I had for the panelists is, much of the video was shot in the growing season 2008 and 9, and so again, one of the underlying themes of the film is really change. And the last 18 months, we've seen record prices in agriculture that's reflected both in input cost, land rental rates, land values. And so I wanted to ask the participants, our corn has come back down. Now we're about, what, $6 corn and $10 soybeans. Has that been good for you guys? No. We need to give...
No, we liked it better when it was 7 and 14.
Okay, but the price of land, the price of machinery, prices, everything's gone up. So some people say, well, yeah, prices are good, but our profits have not improved, and that's what I really want to know. Are your profits better with these high prices, or are they just being eaten up by land rental cost and machinery cost, input costs?
Well, yes, they have been more profitable. They're with $6 corn and $12, $13 beans. They've gotten a lot better. So it's better than it was maybe when we shot the film. It is. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely got that. It's been a really interesting period of time to film this because I got a real sense of the roller coaster part of it. I mean, it may be high now, and that's great, and who knows about tomorrow. Really got that sense.
Here we go.
Do you grow the vegetable soybeans like edamame?
The Swansons? Yeah. No. No one growing edamame yet, unfortunately.
Here we
Yes.
go.
How does for you guys that aren't doing the large commodities farming, what have you seen change in price? Say.
We were just saying that we can't control our prices either, and that a lot of time, we do wholesale and we do retail, but we were trying to sell jalapenos this year, and the grocery stores that we sell to came to us and like, well, we're going to pay this year, and we're like looking at our records. Well, 3 years ago we were getting this price. How come it's gone down? And, it should be going up. Well, we can get them from Mexico for this, so. Basically we either have to match that or we're just sitting on all these jalapenos that we grew that we have nowhere to go with. So I wish that we had inflation and the prices of our product went up every year like everything else, but it doesn't work that way.
This is both to Judy and Charlie, and then is it Welpers? How labor intensive or how many hours a day do you guys put in with your hoop building and then your farm?
About 75 a day.
Yeah.
We actually did a study this year, and we had to turn in our hours and our yield. And I had it all totaled because I had to turn it in October 1st, but I don't remember what the totals are. It's so hard to keep track of those things because, they want to know how much time you spend on tomatoes and how much time you spend on cucumbers. And a lot of times we just go into the high tunnel and we do what has to be done, and we come back out and it's been 5 hours. And I look at Scott and I'm like, now how much of that was on tomatoes and how much of that was weeding and how much of that was harvesting? And we're supposed to keep track of it, and it's too hard to do that.
We go out. We may spend a couple hours a day out there, maybe doing some suckering on tomatoes and just walking through. There may only spend 10 minutes a day. Sometimes I've spent all day out there doing, as Julie said, some weeding and some pruning and harvesting, and it varies considerably day to day as to the maturity of the crop and where it's at in the stage, and so it varies considerably.
To the folks who are doing the vegetable farming, you talked about how you have no control with the grocery stores, how they dictate what the price is. How are you, when you're doing direct to consumers and things like a farm stand and a farmer's market, how are you finding people's response to pricing? Like when I go to a farmer's market, I don't haggle over price and I don't compare it to what the local Walmart or Hy-Vee is. I just pay the price that the farmer's asking. Are you finding that you're able to set those prices and not worry about being competitive with say, a larger grocery store, or are consumers sort of nickeling and diming you?
I think it depends on where your farmer's market is. Like in Boone, in more rural communities, a lot of people have gardens. And so my neighbor gave me tomatoes, my aunt gave me tomatoes, and and then they come to market and, oh my gosh, you're charging $2 a pound for tomatoes. And another thing that I don't think people realize is in the grocery store, when you have your cart loaded up and your total comes to $120, you don't know how much you spent on that tomato. But when they come to farmer's market and they're like, I want that tomato, and they pick out the biggest, best tomato on the table, you put it on the scale, that weighs a pound, that'll be $2. They freak out. Oh my goodness, $2 for one tomato? And it may be $3 a pound at the grocery store, but they don't realize because of, how much they're actually paying, and that it's cheaper at the farmer's market. Do you try to educate them? Yeah. I say, well, you can go to Hy-Vee and buy it for $3 a pound if you'd rather, and get something imported from Mexico, but, that's your choice. But we don't have a lot of people that do that. Most people that come to farmers markets value the fresh local food, and they're willing to pay prices that are comparable to grocery store.
We had 2 local grocery stores that we supplied some produce to through the summer, and they actually labeled it locally grown produce. And I never compared prices. I'm not sure just how they had the locally grown compared with the commercial, but we were able to move product through there, and being labeled as locally grown, I trust was a plus for us, and that people would notice that and say, oh gosh, I'd rather have something that's locally grown. It's probably fresher, hopefully better quality, and we hope that's the case anyway.
I noticed toward the end you brought in the church or religion. I wondered if that could be a thread from more through the whole video.
I think that's really to you, John.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I just sort of let it fall in, when it, whatever the participants had to say about it, as it affected them. I guess I felt like it just was whatever they said that seemed apt at the moment. I didn't really create a section or a theme around it, but that's an interesting idea. Yeah, it didn't occur to me. Yeah.
See, there is a use for a sociologist running around and carrying a microphone.
Exercise won't hurt you any. Since the 80s, when I was acquainted with some farmers, I just in the fringe watched what's going on. And one thing I've noticed is the farmers in particular, they suffer a great deal from the manipulation of the bankers. And they'll artificially hike up the land values and then say, wow, look at the land values. You got a lot of money here. Why don't you borrow some money, get some good tractors, this, that. And they get them really into debt. And then they just manipulate the prices of the land down. And no, you need some more collateral here. Well, the farmer can't come up with it because he's up to his ears, and they foreclose on the farm. And this has happened so many times that it's a crime, but nobody seems to look at it as a crime. And then you have your middleman, usually from New York, and he'll sit there and say, oh, yeah, prices are up. So you, with all confidence, you grow this. And then you say, well, you know, the prices just dropped, and we'll give you pennies on the dollar. Good luck. You know, and then you have to, because you can't sell it to anybody else but them. Somehow they've got you locked into their little stranglehold, and you can't do anything about it. And one thing we have to do to get out from under that is we're going to have to get the stranglehold of the financial world off the farmer's back, and we're going to have to get these manipulative middlemen to be more honest. Well, the only way you can do that is to kick them all out of the country. Now, you look at Germany in the 20s and 30s, and you saw what happened, and you look what happened after that, and Hitler came along. Well, we're in the same situation now that Germany was in, and we're going to have to do the same thing they did. Otherwise, we're going to die. Well, we'll just financially and just die. You don't want to have any farms anymore. It'll all be owned by Monsanto and this hybrid stuff. So that's a big threat, and it's hard for people to understand it, but that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to start hitting back and knocking these people down and starting to work for ourselves and not work for them in the process.
I know a real good cameraman if you want to do a documentary.
Does he work for cheap?
My question's probably first for Jeremy, but actually any of the other row crop farmers could answer this too. And it's about access to land. And you talked several times about, you know, how are you going to get it? And I know you bought 80, but it's also a lot about getting access to the rented ground when it becomes available. And I'm just curious, strategies that you're seeing in terms of how you position yourself to get in line, to get access to those when, you know, you got to compete against just more cash rent, and that may not be the challenge. So how do you approach trying to get your foot in the door to have those opportunities to get more land?
I think I'm going to start by sending John's film out with a letter to every landlord over 65 and hope for a sympathy vote. But, you know, Mom and Dad and Allison have heard me talking for a long time that I want to put together some kind of a brochure or something showboating our little small-time operation. And to get out to farm managers in particular, that's probably the best one anymore with so much of this land being owned by the older generation and out-of-town investors. These farm management companies are making a killing right now managing other people's farm ground. So, you know, years ago you could, if you were good neighbors with a guy down the road, he knew you were a good guy getting started. You know, it was pretty easy to pick up ground. But now I think we got to go suck up to some of these farm managers as a good starting spot, because there's not many people around that own the land anymore to go talk to them. The next thing would be to find the guys in the community that are getting in their, you know, retirement age, and maybe they don't have anybody to come back and farm for them. You know, let them know. Say, hey, I'm here. If there's anything I can do to help you transition out of this, I'd sure be glad to help, and leave it at that. But I guess, you know, you don't think of farmers as having to market themselves, but we almost need a marketing person to promote what we're doing. And I kind of tried to marry into that a little bit, but she hasn't had much time to help me yet. So
I had a question. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but you're with the university through the extension.
What role does higher education have in addressing these issues, and are you guys handcuffed by partnerships with the larger companies that might be causing some of these problems?
Well, in Extension Outreach, I'd say no, we're not handcuffed by any. We've worked with the Swanson family since, Jeremy, how long have you? I don't know, since he was a young child. And this is a 4-H family too as well, so never got mentioned in the film. I don't know how we missed that, but anyway, yeah, we've worked, on the periphery several times over the years, and especially when the high tunnel thing started, we started to do quite a bit more things together. But my role in the film, as you saw, was pretty minuscule. But we shot a lot of footage out at the fairgrounds. I don't know what happened to all that. Apparently it's on the cutting room floor, and probably for a good reason. But yeah, we have lots of farm management issues that we work with. I was jotting down things, Jeremy. I got a couple of farmers' brochures and websites that they use to promote themselves that I'll share with you. Some that I think are exemplary that you could steal some good ideas from. So yeah, we've got things in place. Farm management people that help. The Beginning Farming Center. Quite a bit of resources through the university. I think we can help out a lot of families.
I was going to ask a follow-up to that. Has the extension sort of been changed by the economy, the recession, or and how, if it has?
Yeah. We've resized in the last several years, and to match the resources available. We still have lots of needs to meet, but we're trying to do that in new ways.
Rich, I read an article in the paper the other day about a program that matches retiring farmers with beginning farmers here in the state. It didn't look like it had a lot of use or success anyway so far. Are you familiar with that program? Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, a little bit. It's called the Farm On program. It's part of the Beginning Farming Center. They try to get retiring farmers who don't have apparent heirs or don't have something to do with their farming operation and match those up with younger farmers or beginning farmers that would like to get into it. We have a lot more people that would like to get into it than people who are looking for somebody to help them with. But that opportunity is out there, and there has been some matches made through the Beginning Farming Center.
Oh, that footage, we had water on the lens, actually. So there was a problem. It wasn't yours.
I've heard of everything now, John. Water on the lens.
I have something to add about the land. We got 15 acres, and we were just lucky that we rented it from a lady in town that knows us, and she could have easily got almost double what that we paid from a big commercial grower that's had all the land all around and just totally wanted to eat that up. And she said, I will do anything to keep them from having it. So, she wanted to have a small vegetable farm there and not just have it be swallowed up and be, thrown into the thousands of acres that the neighbor had. And part of that problem with the beginning farmers, Rich, even with this program and the land prices, if a retiring farmer has this little beginning farmer that wants to get started and is willing to pay whatever, and then there's another large, farm that can afford to pay those higher prices, they might want to take the higher prices to have the better retirement and not go with the beginning farmer that doesn't have anything. So I don't know if is there any financial advantages for the retiring farmer to go with the beginning farmer?
Iowa has a beginning farmer tax credit to the retiring farmer. They get some tax incentive if they rent it or sell it to a qualified beginning farmer, which I think is like less than 10 years in the business, sort of thing. So there are some incentives to help overcome some of that.
And we got the beginning farm loan, which helped us pay for it, but she didn't get any benefit from selling it to us, other than the fact that she knows that it's in good hands.
Right, and that would be something I think that if maybe it wasn't in place at the time, or maybe the size of it or something didn't qualify. But most of the tax accountants know about this sort of thing. I think it would be something from a brochure standpoint that I would want to point out to a neighbor or a farmer that you talk to say, do you know that you can get this amount of a tax reduction by renting to me that you can't to that other guy? And then send them to the resources, maybe a website, or have that brochure with you as well.
This question is for John. John, I think it's a very well done film. What are the plans for distribution?
We're probably going to start taking it to film festivals after the first of the year. So that's one way to connect with distributors. And I'm talking with some of the people who distributed my previous documentary. But nothing's lined up officially, so we'll see what the reaction is. And there's a possibility of cutting a shorter television version for TV, although I kind of like the way it's working now. How did people, I'm curious about that too, just how people feel about the length and the pacing of the film in general. I mean, if anybody has any comments about that, either positive or negative.
But you would prefer positive.
I'm actually open to anything.
I thought the length was acceptable, but one thing that I really observed was the love of the land. How much these people loved what they did, care about the land, respect the land, and I thought that was an important thing for the film to portray, that it's not just a job, that you're not out there for the almighty dollar, that you really care for the land and for the crop, and that you want quality and you take care of what provides that product for you.
I'm glad that came through. I had a question too for Dave. We had talked about livestock a little in the beginning of the film, and you had a sort of a smaller livestock operation that wasn't seeming to be very profitable, and I know it's gone that way. How is that developed? We didn't really follow up on that, but how has that developed over the last 3 years? What's going on now with?
I'm out of the hog business right now. Yeah. Yes, I am. With other things in my operation as far as crops and seed business, and I'm focusing more on that area and got out of the livestock business. So, yeah.
And are most all livestock operations are far bigger than yours?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they're growing larger.
I think one thing you could do is, because our distinguished professor commented on the difference in prices of then at the film and now, that you might have a handout, if it's possible, updating the prices and the challenges so that they can see that, well, this is maybe 3-4 years ago as things progresses in the future, and that way they can kind of see how things have been going on. And then you could change that for each presentation because the economy would change equal with that. That might kind of connect the past with the present.
Yeah, that's a good idea to see visually over like a timeline. Yeah.
Other questions or comments for either John or the panelists?
Lauren?
You just wanted me to get more exercise.
So I was just thinking, again, I'm sort of harping on the farmer's market thing because I'm a farmer's market junkie, and I'm not much of a gardener as much as I try. And a couple nights ago, my husband and I, and no disrespect to Hy-Vee, went to the salad bar at Hy-Vee, and I could barely get through the salad because I was so used to buying from the local farmers all summer. So as a marketing tool, you might want to get one of those tomato-shaped objects that they sell at the grocery stores that have lost all their flavor and sample it next to yours. And seriously, because I actually came home and said, no wonder Americans eat so poorly because this has no taste. And when you add salt and fat and sugar, it has so much more taste. But when you have it, like when you were the scene at the end where you're picking all those cherry tomatoes, I was just salivating knowing how good they were. So if you had a comparison for people to know that when they're picking that big beautiful tomato and it costs $2 for one tomato, what it is that they're getting compared to what they don't even know what it costs at the Hy-Vee. So that's just a little marketing ploy.
We've done samples of ours, and if Scott can get anybody to try a grape tomato, then they go home with them. But we've never thought about bringing the alternative and letting them try that. But that's a good idea.
I want to mention, too, we had the musicians here tonight, which is a great honor and pleasure. Lauren Chapter and Dennis James, if you want to wave your hands, identify yourselves. It's lucky to have such talented and expert musicians working on this film. It's been a pleasure. Did anyone have any other questions?
Well, I think we owe an applaud to John and the
here's
panelists.
A question.
Here we go.
I just want to comment on your sense of humor throughout the film. I thought that was very important because farming gets tough, and you all seem to keep a positive attitude, work together, and I just want to commend you for seeing the bright side of things.
Thanks.
You know, there's another late arrival that came. Kylie is here, sitting in the back,
Oh,
and
excellent.
he's featured in the video.
Come on up, Kylie.
He says, "Great. Who tipped him off?" Well, if there are no other questions, I know the hour's getting late, but I would like to ask that we give a round of applause to our musicians, the producer, and the panelists. I thought they did a great job.